Hello everyone, I'm Dan Philgreen, and this is Shell Point Today for Tuesday, September 2nd. On today's show, we'll continue the story of Bob Anderson of Turbine, who helped to found one of the first ever cargo airlines. His cross-country adventures were made all the more special with the addition of a female co-pilot. And we'll get some airborne war stories from Nautilus resident Nip Wilson. And while you have your eyes on the skies, remember to save the date of the week of November 17 through 21 for our signature season opener, Fantasy of Flight. The week will be full of flight-themed events and surprises. So, to get you in the mood, we're going to hear from some of Shell Point's aviators. But first, we want to remind you that the Arbor Tea and Tour starts this morning at 9 a.m. for those of you who have RSVP'd to attend. And we're right back to the airplanes. Bob Anderson of Turbine was a World War II pilot who helped to found one of the very first cargo airlines in the world. Bob, along with his partner Charlie, were making up the rules as they went, finding loads to carry from anywhere to anywhere. Yet another broken barrier was Bob's co-pilot, Mary, the first ever female cargo pilot, who went on to become his wife. Let's climb in the cockpit with Bob and Charlie as we learn how they made their cargo airline a success.
Take a look at the cockpit here. A little different than our cockpit.
It looks close up here to me.
Yeah, but they got a lot of equipment we didn't have.
Yeah, evidently, because you know we had a little more room. Yeah. Seemed like.
But this is a good old air. We've flown many thousands of hours.
It looked further to the ground too, you know. We're sitting way up here. Y'all look a long ways down there. I don't think it looked this far long when we were younger. This is all the same.
This airplane's been in service for, well, it's been around for close to 75 years.
Now there was a fourth person I read about in your book who was with you in the early days, the young lady. Tell me about her.
We were hauling, like Bob said, the newspapers and the flowers northbound, and we needed co-pilots, and Bob had a flight going out that afternoon or sometimes in the evening, you know, and when I came in, he said, get me a co-pilot. So this nice looking lady came by, real short, she wasn't very big, and she wanted a job as a co-pilot, and I checked all of her license, and she had it more than I had. We go out on in test flight to see if she could fly, and she did a good job, and it was hard for her to reach the rudders, so she had shoes that had platforms on them so she could reach the rudder. So anyway, I hired her, and when Bob came in to take the flight out, he said, came in the office and said, did you get me a co-pilot? And I said, yeah. So he goes out and gets in the airplane, and then he comes back in the office. And he said, that's a woman out there, a lady out there. And I said, I know it. That's your co-pilot. And he didn't want to go, but then he changed his mind, decided he'd go, and after a few weeks, he didn't want to go with anybody except Marson as a co-pilot, you know. But
she was a real pleasure to fly with, you know, because back then there were no women, very few women pilots, and we'd be flying IFR, and she'd check in with the controllers, and they'd get so excited to hear a lady's voice. They couldn't, you know, couldn't believe what they're hearing.
So then, how long after that first flight were you married?
Let's see, we were married in 1950.
But really the good part about the whole thing was that, you know, when Bob and Mary went on a trip, it was cheaper because they could stay in the same room, you know, and we didn't have to pay the per diem, you know.
So that worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Charlie, tell us about that first trip, flying the lettuce.
Well, it's like Bob said, we went to Sanford, stopped at the celery farm, and met John Bell. We gave him a price for the pepper plants and celery plants that he wanted to ship to San Francisco. And back then, you know, it took 5 to 7 days on a truck, and he said, how long will it take? And we said, well, if we leave one afternoon, we'll be there the next morning. And that really impressed him. We told him that we were going to have a little bit of down payment because we had to buy gas. And he said, no, I'm not going to give you any down payment because I don't think you're going to make it anyway. You know, he said, I don't think you're going to get them out there. And he said, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go with you. And every time you stop for gas, I'll pay for the gas. All the way to San Francisco, and every time we'd stop, he'd pay for the gas. Transportation was tough back then, and when we got out to California, San Francisco, this porter that was out there asked us, can you haul passengers? And we said, yeah. We had the bucket seats, you know, it's a long bench inside the airplane that you let down, stands up
on the sides.
Right, right.
With the way the troops rode in them.
Right, exactly. And so we said, well, we could take 21, I think.
But no women, no women.
And so why was that?
Oh, because
we didn't have any heat there.
You know, and they're riding in an airplane with a metal interior.
There's no bathroom, right?
Well, we had a makeshift bathroom.
Yeah.
Makeshift bathroom.
So
the phone rang and it was him. He said, I got you a load. And I said, well, when do they want to leave? And he said, they want to leave right now. And he had them and we loaded them up. But the problem is he had how many women?
About 6 or 8 women.
Yeah.
And we had told them no women.
Yeah.
And it was, and these women pleaded with us to take them. They just begged us. So we had no choice. We had to take them, and everything worked out beautifully because we had strong tailwinds. We went across the mountains at over 200 miles an hour. It was a great trip, and then we charged them $100 a head. So we had $2,800 in cash, and you know we had no expenses, no landing fees, no handling. Fuel was like 10 to 15 cents a.
So you made $2,800 on the return trip.
We got there.
And an airplane that cost $20,000.
Exactly. We were in our hotel, and we got Mr. Bell's check, and we got all this cash.
Oh, much cash.
And we couldn't believe. You know, we both grew up in very poor families, very extremely poor families, and to have all this money. Now we had a better ladder because it had hooks that went in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you couldn't.
And it wouldn't slide.
You couldn't slide. When the cargo compartment was full of cargo, and that happened often, and we would have to go in and out this door, and we had a ladder. We carried a ladder with us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we carried a ladder in the airplane that we could use to get in and out this door. And Charlie came up with the idea. He came out this door, and he'd reach his feet over to the engine nacelle, and he'd work his way back with his feet against the nacelle and his hands against the fuselage, back to the back of the wing. And so he taught us all how to do that, how to get out of the airplane that way. We didn't have to fool with the ladder. We were small and did most everything ourselves, you know, like the crews loading and unloading, and we did a lot of mechanical work ourselves. And so we put in a lot of hard work.
Tomorrow we'll conclude our series on the history of coastal airlines as the boys retell some of their close calls and other adventures. You can also read about Bob's story in his book, The Flyboys, How 3 World War II Pilots Pioneered a New Industry. I did, and it's great. It's available at the Shell Point gift shop as well as on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Bob tells us that all proceeds go straight to the Pavilion Auxiliary. So check out his book and donate to a good cause. Nip Wilson of Nautilus has had some amazing adventures in aviation, including flying the iconic F-4U Corsair off of an aircraft carrier for the Navy. A while back, we got Nip to do some hangar flying and relive some of those flights. Nip, you were a Corsair pilot.
Yes.
And into the Korean era, correct?
That's true.
So tell us about flying the Corsair.
Well, the Corsair was in a reserve squadron first in Akron, Ohio. I lived in Pittsburgh. And having been in World War II, flying the Wildcat, which was mentioned, it's a very small fighter, little hard to manage on the ground because it had gear that was only about 4 feet apart, as I remember. Mm-hmm. After Pensacola and going through operational, I was sent to the fleet in a squadron that was had both fighters and torpedo bombers in it, and we operated from a Jeep carrier, which used the old C3 freighter type of hull, and they put a deck on it, and they thought it was wide enough and long enough to handle us, which we did all right on through the part of World War II I was in. And I had to thank Harry Truman for saving my neck, I think, in World War II, because he dropped the bomb on Japan, causing them to surrender. And in our squadron, I was trained at Fort Sill to spot artillery rounds. And so they were ready to send me from Okinawa over to Japan to spot naval gunfire against the Japanese home island, which meant that I'd be circling around over Japan with everybody at a slingshot shooting at me. Well, the reserves were most attractive to a bachelor like me in Pittsburgh, because I could drive over to Akron, Ohio, and particularly after our regular weekends, I could go over on say, Monday, and they were anxious to get rid of all the airplanes, get rid of all their work. So I would check out a Corsair, fly over to New York, land at Floyd Bennett, and see all my friends over there. And you could do that in the service at that particular time.
Had your own private airplane then, basically.
Essentially a very expensive one.
Yeah. Well, Nip, tell us now, flying off an aircraft carrier is an activity fraught with peril. I'm sure you saw your share of close calls.
On our whole cruise, we had no accidents at all. This is on the map. It was an Essex class carrier, in other words, a straight deck. The last one built, I think, was the Valley Forge, which is the one we used. Sometimes there wasn't any wind, so the captain went to flank speed, did the best he could. But with one of the airplanes I was in, it wasn't quite fast enough, and I stalled going off the bow. Wound up, this I put in that diary I wrote, wound up about 100 yards off to the port side, went into the water. Fortunately, it landed right side in, and I was able to get out, and the airplane went down just about in that sequence. I had experience in a lot of the Navy's airplanes. The one that I enjoyed, was most comfortable flying, was the F-86, I guess it was, that the Air Force used over Korea. The Navy had some of those after the war. And air conditioning, quiet, just went along, lifted off, and you could, very maneuverable. So that was a delightful airplane. Well, of course, I've enjoyed it right from the beginning. I started at College Flying Club, as I mentioned, the 40 horsepower Cub. But I was thinking about history. Over at the Naval Air Museum in Pensacola, which some of you may have
Beautiful
visited.
Place, yeah.
They have a World War I Spad, and that airplane had a rotary engine, but the whole engine rotated.
Oh, yes.
And the only way you could stop it was to turn off the ignition. So if they wanted to slow it down, they'd turn the ignition off for a while, and then they'd turn it back on again when you were landing. We had a reunion over there a number of years ago, I think 2003 it would have been, and something I got an inspiration. I said, now, the Wright brothers flew in 1903. We were in Korea in 1953, and it's now 2003. That makes us pilots from the Middle Ages.
The golden era.
Nip also has a book that documents his adventures. It's called Hello Cherry Tree and is available in the Shell Point gift shop. I can tell you personally that it's a fascinating read. Now it's time to cover all of Tuesday's happenings: Academy news, menus, and Village Church connections.
I'm Mary Franklin here today with Bev Chanley, and it is Tuesday, September 2nd, and it is sign-up day. So we look forward to seeing you or hearing your voice on the phone at the service desk starting at 8:15 Tuesday morning. 7:15, Bend, Breathe, and Balance will start in the Health Club on the island. Pickleball players will be starting at 8 a.m. as well as the tennis players with a round-robin doubles. 8:15, Stamp Ministry volunteers will be gathering in the stamp room. And we head out to the golf course for Ladies Golf Association tee-off time at 8:30. And if you're signed up, there is an assisted living tea and tour in the Arbor, and that starts at 9 a.m. 9:15 is the time for caregiver support group and memory care. They'll meet on the second floor in the rehab center. Open painting takes place in the art studio at 9:15, as well as shuffleboard. And then at 9:30, back to the tennis courts with match play mixed doubles. Through the Bible study group meets at 10:15. And then our second caregiver support group and memory care group meeting will take place at 10:30, and they meet too on the second floor of the rehab center. And our weekly Living Healthy with Michelle Smith takes place at 11:45 in the Osprey Room, and everyone is welcome to attend. Bev, take it away for the rest of the day.
Thanks, Mary. We're going to start at 12:30 today with Mixed Progressive Bridge. That's in the game room at the Woodlands. Then we have our 1:15 Knitters group. They'll be gathering in the Osprey Room. The Rollicking Recorderist will be down in the Tarpon Room at 1:15. And then our last 1:15 activity is the Women's Ministries Prayer Group. They're meeting at 408 Royal Bonnet. At 1:30, it's time for a Health Connections class, Aqua Pilates Stretch at the Life Quest Aquatic Center. The Stamp Ministry will be in the Saple Room at the Woodlands at 1:30. And we'll jump to 6:45 for our hymn sing. That's held in the Resident Activities Center. We're sure glad you joined us here today, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Menus for Tuesday. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter is chicken piccata with penne pasta and spinach. The dinner special is the Build Your Own Stir Fry for $13.95, and the soup of the day is lima bean. In the Island Cafe for lunch, the special is a patty melt with chips for $7.25. The dinner special is your choice of a hot dog or hamburger with a side salad, watermelon, and ice cream for $8.25. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
It's a privilege to welcome you today to Village Church Connections. Thank you for joining us. I have a very special guest beside me today, Bob Southern, who is our project management leader here at Shell Point. And Bob, you and your team, Julie Nipper in particular, have been very, very helpful to us as we've been working through this renovation project at the church. And before we get into any of the details of the project, I just want to say thank you. On behalf of all of us, we have deeply appreciated the work and the time and the energy that you all have devoted to the project, and we could not have done it without you. So thank you.
Well, you're quite welcome, and it's been a pleasure. Certainly the Village Church is a centerpiece of the community and who we are, and it's been a joy to be a part of that and to work with the team in the church, and it's been fun and challenging, and as any big job like that is, and renovating an existing space. So we've been pushing through all those challenges and those interesting discoveries you make behind walls and under floors, and we're looking forward to seeing it done and moving everybody back in and getting those services up and running.
We are too, and as we get closer to that October date, that's been our goal. The activity level is escalating around the church as a lot of things are going on. Give us an update as to what's currently happening and where we are in the project.
Well, we spent a lot of time in the main sanctuary area after we just cleared everything out and removing the existing old seating and the carpeting, and then with the use of lifts, tearing down all the old ceiling tiles and insulation in the ceiling so that we could get above the ceiling to remove the old can lights that used to light the sanctuary and all the wiring that went back to the main electrical room to be prepared to install all the new and more modern electrical light fixtures that are going to light the sanctuary. LED fixtures, the can lights, there's about 150 of them through the sanctuary, light emitting diode type fixtures that provide a wonderful clean white light, fully dimmable from the second floor control booth. So that the folks working up there can control the amount of light in the sanctuary in different areas of the sanctuary. They have all those light fixtures have now been installed along with the control packages and the wiring back to the control booth. New ceiling tiles and insulation have been installed, so now the sanctuary itself, that ceiling is finished. And when that was done, we moved up to the second floor in the mezzanine area and tore all those ceilings out and have been putting the new lighting up there and ceiling grids and into the offices and disrupting your life and all the folks that work up there. We're very good at disrupting lives and workflows and doing our best not to disrupt too much, but that's part of the process. So we have been moving forward with getting that done and are very close now to having that whole lighting package installed, and have been painting the sanctuary as that has wrapped up. And now we're starting the carpeting. They actually started the carpeting just today, and we'll be installing carpeting throughout the next several weeks. You're going to really start seeing the area come together now, and it's the mad scramble time toward the end, and what I always refer to when the projects get close to the end is the crisis of the day time frame, when seems like there's always something that pops up that looks like it's just going to stop the job dead in its tracks. And over the course of the day, you figure out what the problem is, you solve it, and wait for the next crisis of the day to arise. And you know, the roll-up wooden doors were the crisis that we've had to deal with now, and we're working through the issues with them. But when you're dealing with an old building and everything that goes with that, there's always surprises, and just you roll with the punches, you deal with what you have to, and you keep moving forward.
And you've been great problem solvers, I have to say. We are seeing things come together at this point as the paint goes on the walls and the electric gets done and the lights come on, and the kitchen's been demoed, the library's been demoed, but those over the course of the next week or so are going to be put back together, and that process will be started. I will mention that over the course of the next couple weeks, we'll be shuffling office spaces as the offices all get done, which will, as you mentioned, affect our workflow, but we're going to do our best to be accessible to folks and be available to be helpful as needed.
And everybody's been great about that. The staff has been great. They've worked with us as we move things here and there, and they're taking the opportunity to clean things out and get rid of things that they don't need to have around anymore, and reconfigure things and get their workspaces in better shape when they come back. And residents have been great about working around what we're doing and not trying to sneak into the work areas where it's unsafe. They've been really great about that. And as you say, the new kitchen area, the flooring is happening in there, and the library has been stripped out. New shelving is going to start going in there any day now, and those areas will start to come back together. And so there are, rather than the big sanctuary job going on, there's lots of little pockets of work in this room and that room, in this area and that area. The actual control booth upstairs is actually being expanded by 8 feet, so we're adding more equipment and space for them to control all the things that they do up there, the cameras and the lights, and So it's just going to be a lot of neat things that are going to be there and be in place, and really looking forward to seeing the church when it comes together with the new seating and the carpeting and the new paint colors and some of the new decorative light fixtures, in addition to the new LED lighting, and seeing how all that all works and comes together and is controlled. And we've done some nice things on the stage also, with new bamboo wood flooring up there, and acoustical panels on the back of the stage, which will augment the sound of all the musical events and singing. Randy's very exciting about his acoustical panels. They were heavy, thick panels that are made specifically to reflect and augment sound, so it bounces off the back wall in a way that's beneficial to the sound. And there's, I think, 42 of these panels, and they weigh 95 pounds each. So we actually had to rebuild the rear wall of the stage so it would hold all that weight. They were installed about a week ago, and they look great up there. So the rear curtains of the stage come right up and meet these deep panels, and when the curtains are closed, it looks very nice. And we've got a big, beautiful new cross that's being made that will be internally lit. So when that's hung in front of these new panels and with the curtains, and it's just going to be gorgeous.
It will be. It's been noisy, it's been messy, but it's been exciting. And we love seeing the project come together. And over the course of the next few weeks, we're just celebrating that. Our goal's been October, and I believe that we will still be able to be back in that space beginning in October. It probably won't be 100% done. We don't expect it will be, but certainly usable.
That is our goal, and I think you're probably right. There'll still be some back of behind-the-scenes stuff going on. When you've got all these little discoveries that happen and things that pop up, you add a little time to the schedule, but we're very confident that the sanctuary will be opened and usable, and with the carpeting starting now, and the chairs will be coming soon. And
how many chairs?
About 1,000. 1,050, I think, is the number. And
thank you, Bob. And send our thanks to Julie as well. You've been a great team to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful day.
We're glad you joined us for today's show. Tune in tomorrow when we'll continue the story of Bob Anderson of Turbine, who had a few close calls as the pilot of one of the first ever cargo airlines. We'll also meet Pauline Schroeder of the Springs, who took up flying at the age of 51. Until then, this is Shell Point Today for Tuesday, September 2nd. I'm Dan Filgreen, and from all of us here at Shell Point TV, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.